Hello and welcome back to the TFF Podcast by Fantasy Football Hub. It has been a long time with the Premier League and therefore TFF starting back on the 17th of June. We are back to discuss what we can expect to happen over the remainder of the season, how this could affect our TFF teams and plans, and which teams and players we should be targeting. So we are joined as usual by the Hub's registered statistician, Carl Weeks. Carl, are you looking forward to the restart of the Premier League season?
Yeah, so it seems like it's forever ago, but yeah, very looking forward to it and very excited to get back into the action.
Fantastic. And we have an absentee this time round in Luke Wilson, who makes his apologies, but we do have a substitute and a very experienced player to stand in this month in Mauro Zeraschi. Mauro, are you able to tell us a bit about yourself and your experience in TFF?
Yeah, hello Andrew and Carl. Nice to be on this. So basically, I've been playing probably 10 years now, 10th season, I guess. Fan from the start. I used to play in the Sun Dream team, and there's no comparison. It's 10 times better in my eyes. Usually do all right. The first couple of years, it took a little while to get used to, but tend to finish in top 1,000 most years. And I've had a couple of good seasons where I finished 300 odd in 1 year, I think, and even a couple of the World Cup and the Euro 2016 in particular, I think I finished as high as 82nd. I know it's less players, but I really got the bug, and I'm on a bit of a poor season this year. I've wasted a few transfers. I mean, we'll go on to that after, but I still love it, and love it more than ever. And yeah, I can't wait for the season to restart next week. So happy days.
Good stuff, mate. One of the best memories I have with Mauro. So I know Mauro, I think it was about, I want to say 2013 or 2014 when Mauro and I were in the pub. We were having a game of snooker and we were looking at the updates on our phones. And it was the year that Southampton beat, was it Middlesbrough? Who did they beat 8-0? 8-0. And we both had Capella and Tadic in our teams. And I think Tadic got something like four assists or something ridiculous like that. And Pella got 2 goals and 2 assists. And
we were running around the room.
We were jumping around the room. It was, and I think even at Bertrand then, I'm sure he got like a goal and a clean sheet or something ridiculous.
It was a dream. It was a dream evening, and again, little things like that. It makes the whole season. You have, like I said, I'm on a poor season this year, and what I'll do for one of those again, to turn up, it makes a massive difference.
It was an unbelievable day, that's for sure. Okay, so if you're watching on the YouTube and you haven't subscribed to us yet, please press the subscribe button in the bottom right-hand corner of the screen to ensure you don't miss anything going forward. So today we are going to talk about an update on TFF in terms of the games itself and what this means for us as managers. We're going to take a look at our teams, our transfers left, and our plans. We're going to look at what we can expect for the remainder of the season and how this could affect our teams and which teams and players we're going to target. So just for those who haven't seen the latest news, from either from the Premier League or from TFF. So the Premier League is going to start back up on June the 17th, and we have 3 game weeks worth of fixtures alongside the FA Cup quarter-final matches with dates and times confirmed, with the remaining fixture schedule being the same, but with dates and times to be confirmed, which does not help us as TFF managers. And TFF themselves have confirmed. So I had a tweet back off TFF, and they said there's just going to be some very minor tweaks for Super 16s and for tournaments. Otherwise, pretty much business as usual. More details to follow. And then I went on the site, and there was a little notice on their site saying TFF scoring will resume scoring for Wednesday, June the 17th, and will include all remaining Premier League and FA Cup matches. So I think it's safe to say that the game is going to stay materially unchanged, basically carry on where we left off, which is probably good for those actually who planned with the future fixtures in mind, because it's carried on more or less where it left off in terms of fixtures and the actual transfers we had in mind, plans we had in mind when it all kind of finished off. The big difference for TFF will be the times between the matches. So nearly every game now all the games are staggered out. And the beauty of TFF, one of the nuances for TFF is you can make transfers not far off between every single Premier League and FA Cup game for the remainder of the season. Carl, have you got any kind of thoughts on that? Do you think that kind of helps you or hinders you in terms of your plans and stuff?
Well, look, I think it's going to hinder everybody, the start up of the season and just the way it all goes, because people have come back from injuries, and therefore that's going to have an impact on team selections. So you wouldn't have taken adjustments for that. And also, as you mentioned, the games are so condensed.
Yeah.
You know, you'd have issues about rotation, as well as the short time period between now and the following season. I think will have a big impact as well.
I agree. How about you, Mal? Have you got any kind of thoughts in terms of how that's going to affect your plans and stuff?
Well, yeah, like Carl said, it's all the congestion of the games are going to be a lot of rotation. I mean, players-wise, I mean, the reports come back saying that the players are fitter than ever at the moment in training, and you know, I know you see even some of the Spanish football, they come out with Gareth Bale saying he's thing, and it might be the same with the Premiership. So I think the players are fit enough to go. It's just whether playing, you know, twice a week and there's going to be a lot of rotation in so many games over the next few weeks. But yeah, I think I've got to look. Especially, I'm very low on transfers myself. I'm going to pick players who I think are going to play almost every game, which is going to be hard to pick. You know.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks for that, Mao. So speaking of our teams, then, so we've got Carl's team now up on the screen. Carl, for our podcast listeners, are you able to run through your team and just give us your, you know, kind of thoughts on where you think you are with it?
Okay. Yeah, my team isn't in too bad of a shape. I think there may be a theme, especially coming from me, in terms of I do quite like players to still be within the FA Cup.
Yeah.
So bearing in mind, in goal I've got Henderson. I've got 3 defenders from Leicester, which is Chilwell, Pereira, and Son Chu. Pereira's red flag, so I'm going to have to sort of check on his injury status.
I think he's out for the season, mate.
Yeah, that's my understanding. I sort of like finalised that check-in, so he's going to have to go and be replaced.
Yeah.
In midfield, I've got Bruno from Man United, so he's had a good start.
Definitely.
Mason Mount, Sterling, and Salah. Sorry, I've missed out my other defender, which was TAA. Yep. And then up front, I've got Aguero and Pukki. So apart from the 2 Liverpool players, all the others are still within the cup. Pereira, I think, is in everybody's team on the podcast, so he's going to have to go. And I'm not quite sure. I haven't decided what I'm going to be doing with him. I may be going more towards Sheffield United than anyone else. I'm quite happy with my position team-wise. I've still got 9 transfers left, but I'm in no hurry to sort of use them up because I'm waiting to sort of see through the restart rotation who's playing, who's not playing, who's picking up injuries. So I'm going to sort of like try to spread them out through the rest of the season.
I think the FA Cup weekend is quite important as well, because if there's a shock or 2 in there, so say Man United and Man City get knocked out, that could have tends to be a big impact, and vice versa. If they both go through, you're probably wise to start loading up, on Man City and Man United, aren't you? But
well, that's right. That's hopefully where I'm going to get to, and that's when I'm going to start make changes depending on who's gone through. Yeah. So obviously, either Leicester playing Chelsea, so one of those have gone out.
Exactly. Yeah.
But yeah.
Cool. Okay, and and what's your rank, Carl? Sorry.
I was 4,653.
You're climbing up right behind me, and I've had a bit of a lead all season, but you're right behind me now with a good team and more transfers. So I'm getting a bit nervous now.
I did have a look today. I couldn't quite remember what score you was on. I'm on 1417. I'm sorry, 1,417. And I thought I was about 30 points behind you, around that sort of mark. Maybe a bit less.
I think that sounds about right. About right. Okay.
So I am chasing you down, mate.
You are. Okay, so moving on to Mauro's team. Again, Mauro, for our listeners, if you could read your team out and give us your thoughts.
Yeah, so I've gone for a few FA Cup players, before the season went on hold. I got Schmeichel in goals. I got Pereira, as we all have, so he's going to have to go. Zanucha, what his name is, from Leicester. I got Brandon Williams, who again, just before the season stopped, he was playing a bit, but I'm not sure what's going to happen there, so he may need to go. And I got Alexander-Arnold, so that's my back four. I'm playing 4-5-1. I got Kevin De Bruyne, I got Mane, Salah, Martial, and Mason Mount. So again, I got a couple of obviously the Liverpool players, but I don't really want to take them out, as because they're two of the best on the game. And I got Aguero up front, so 4-5-1. So I've only got 6 transfers left. So straight away, Pereira has to come out if he's out for the season, which he's going to be. A bit like Carl, I'm going to bring a Sheffield United player in. Probably maybe I shouldn't because of the differential part of it, but Bulldog, and he's about 15% owned, so 14% owned. So maybe I shouldn't bring him in, and if I want to, to go up the rankings, but for the value is 2.4 million. I think he's a must, and because it frees up money, obviously. My overall rank, it's actually quite nice to hear the Carl's. I'm only 23 points off Carl, but my rank is 7,500. So it shows that you have a good week, you can jump
Absolutely.
up. So I'm obviously probably below average on the transfers. I imagine 6 is about 3 or 4 lower than most have, but hopefully I pick in a couple of players, probably FA Cup players, and they do a difference. Even like Mason Mount or Martial, if they can perform, then it should go up.
I think Martial's a good shout, mate. I think for the rest of the season, I think he's really good value as well. 4.8 million playing up front for a team that's still in the FA Cup and has got a really good run as well.
I'm really, really happy with my midfield, those 5.
Yeah.
The only thing I could do is, again, sacrifice either Mane or Salah, which is a big risk if I want to, and hopefully one of them doesn't perform and I get in someone of obviously lesser value, but still in the FA Cup. And
this is it.
That may be the option I have to go down, I think.
Okay, thank you, Mo. And just onto my team lastly then. So my team, I've got Henderson in goals. I've got Baldock, Soyuncu, Alexander-Arnold, and the dreaded Ricardo Pereira, who's been absolutely fantastic this season, by the way. Up until this point, he's been well worth his value for 3.5 million. I've got a midfield of De Bruyne. I've got Mahrez, Salah, and Jota. And then I've got Aguero and Jesus up front. So I've got 4 heavy Man City attackers. So if we remember, just before lockdown, there was that Man City Arsenal game, which is obviously cancelled, and I brought in Man City with that game in mind, and they had some other games around it. So obviously, when that was postponed, I was absolutely devastated because part of my strategy was to bring them in with this run of games in mind. So thankfully for me, it's actually worked out really well that the first game back, they're back playing on the first night, along with Baldock and Henderson as well. So on that first night, I've actually got 6 players playing. I'm hoping that after that, Carl, my lead will extend over you a little bit, and they will obviously all play again, as part of the double game week. Now, I'm not expecting all of them to play, but last season I had a really successful period where I had in both Aguero and Jesus. I know it sounds like a bit of a funny move, but you're guaranteed that one of them is going to be on the pitch at any one time. and a lot of the time, they play in the same team as well. So if Man City score, then they're normally involved. It's a bit all eggs in one basket, but I think we're hitting the part of the season now where if you want to go for a little bit, and go for glory, you've got to kind of stick your stake in the ground. And with Man City still being in the FA Cup, they score a lot of goals. They'll be incentivised still, which I'm not sure Liverpool will. And I'm quite happy with that. I'm happy with Jota as well. I think he's very, very cheap for what he brings. And I think overall, actually, when I switched on for the first time in 2 months or wherever it was, I was thinking, oh my God, what's my team going to look like? I think I've actually fallen on my feet a little bit. I'm quite pleased. So, and in terms of my kind of plan moves, we'll have a look in a minute of kind of players and stuff. But Pereira is 20% owned, so that's a fair old chunk of transfers that's going to have to be taken across the board to get him out. In terms of immediate replacements, I think Wolves got a really nice finish. So I'm looking at Doherty, who finished off absolutely on fire. He's so dangerous. And actually, we'll talk more about this when we get to the players. But I quite like the look of Maguire. He's actually second for form, so he scored the second most points out of all defenders in the last 6 weeks. The only one ahead of him, surprisingly, was Luke Shaw, and he's still in the FA Cup. I think centre-backs are probably more likely to play more minutes than full-backs in a run-up, just because they don't do as much running. So I think that full-back like Doherty, for example, are probably far more to being brought off earlier in matches than centre-back. So yeah, I quite like Maguire, and he's also very attacking. And Man United's fixtures are absolutely superb the rest of the season as well. So I've got 5 transfers left. So I haven't had the best season in TFF compared to my last few seasons. I'm currently ranked about 3,200, which is all right. I did get briefly into the top 2,000, but I would also say that I'm happy with my team, and I don't think I would change much of how I've played it. I think each season, is you kind of you have to play it what's in front of you, and I don't think I change much. So, yes, that's me at the moment. So,
can I just sort of say one thing about your team?
Yeah, sure.
I think you've been a bit unlucky, and I know when you look at it, you're quite pleased and happy. But I'd have been much more pleased and happy if there was no crisis that we've been through with your team than where we are now, because I think you're going to be really disadvantaged in one respect, because we're in such unusual circumstances, and every team, I think, have got their own agenda that they need to probably follow. And I agree with you 100% about, near the end of the season, sometimes you just have to go for it. But it's unfortunate that you've gone for it with City, and now we're in this position where I think City are going to be much more open to rotation. Their motivation near the end of the season is probably quite low, and they've got the European Cup, Champions League in August, and it's like, are they going to be saving themselves for that as well as for next season? Whereas Man United, where I may start moving more of my assets to, they're chasing down that 4th spot, and 5th may be good enough. So they will be playing those positions, not rotating as much. So that's why I think you've been a bit unlucky of where we're picking up now because of that gap, and that's going to probably hurt you more than it will hurt other people who haven't taken that punt so far.
Well, in terms of notes I've got of players that I'll be looking to bring in, I've only got the 5 left, so same as Mauro, as he mentioned earlier, I'll be looking for players to play out the season. I won't be kind of hopping on and off anyone. But Maguire and Fernandez are 2 which will very, very likely find their way into my team. I thought I was a bit unlucky actually with Man City, because they did have I don't know if you remember, I think it was on like a Tuesday night or Wednesday night or something, and Man City drew Sheffield. I want to say Sheffield Wednesday in the FA Cup. and that was a plum tie, and 3 of those 4 there, so De Bruyne, Mahrez, Aguero, and Jesus, I'm sure 3 of them started, and I was like, here we go. I thought, 5-0, 6-0. I thought I'm going to get about 30, 40 points here, and I think they won like 1-0, and Aguero got the goal, but to have like 11 points or whatever I got from those 3 or 4 players from a game against Sheffield Wednesday. I think it was Sheffield Wednesday.
It would. Yeah,
that
and
was.
It felt like a loss a bit after, didn't it?
It was awful. I was literally like, when you kind of line up a plan and it plays out perfectly. It played out perfectly, apart from they only won 1-0. I think it was 1-0.
Because I took the gamble of not bringing them in, and I knew that you did have them in.
Yeah,
and because you could have scored about 4 or 5, because I remember the keeper made loads of saves and you had some great chances and you missed. So I thought I dodged a bullet then. But
Well, I remember, Ferg. I remember last year, I think, in similar situation where it did pay off. I think you had Jesus in the one of the FA Cup games, and he scored. And it just, that's how it goes. You need, obviously, running the good, bit of fortune. And
I think there's the the kind of age old argument in there between, like, in fantasy, with the difference between skill and luck, and my kind of answer to that always is, the skill for me is putting yourself into a position where the probability is in your favour to have a good finish. Whereas last season it kind of happened for me in terms of I put in all those Man City players, and Man City went on a run of beating everyone 3-4 5-0, and it catapulted me in the league. Whereas I've done the same this year, and so far it hasn't paid off. But I'm still kind of in a good position. But the luck part for me there is that I was lucky last year, and maybe I've been unlucky this year. But there's different arguments for that. So in terms of looking then at what we think is going to happen for the remainder of the season, so we've kind of mentioned, we've mentioned a few already. I think there's got to be a lot of frustration with fantasy football, because would you be really surprised if the teams rolled out over these next 3 games and all the star players were either didn't start or they got brought off after 60 minutes, or whatever else. So I think there's going to be a lot of frustration, a lot of rotation, and there's 5 subs as well now, so you can make every Premier League team can make 5 transfers in every game. So you would imagine, especially coming fresh back, teams are going to want to avoid injury. Players are not going to be match fit and stuff. So I think that'll play a big part. But this is also why I quite like having the Man City players, because even if they are rested, they tend to come on, and in all likelihood, if you bring on Mahrez on 65 minutes, I'd fancy him to get a return still, if you know what I mean. So I personally think that strikers, wingers, and fullbacks will probably get subbed off more than centre backs, centre midfielders, and goalkeepers, because I just think that in terms of mileage, and in terms of the sprinting up and down the line and sprinting forward and back, they tend to do that a lot more. So I think that'll happen, and I think there'll be injuries as well, which is going to be very frustrating. And this is where the people with 10, 15, some have got 20 subs left. There's the chap on Twitter, is my cat playing? He messaged me earlier and said, I'm sat in 7K with 23 subs left. I was like, wow, he is in his oils, because he can just basically manipulate his team around the fix. He can just wait. He can just wait for the fixtures and just put in his team, whoever he wants. Whereas we have to kind of think of season long changes now. So, have you got anything else, guys, in terms of, Carl, any more thoughts on on what will happen for the rest of the season? How you think the season will play out?
For me, I think you sort of touched on most things that sort of like in my mind. I think there will be the injuries will happen. Mainly, I'm not quite sure, whether it's just minor strains or whatever. So I'm not quite sure if that affects more the wingers and the nippy players rather than some of the centre backs.
Yeah.
But I think so. For me, I'm a, for people who don't know, I'm a Crystal Palace fan, And I quite like this because I think of it more as hopefully a bit more for pre-season, and we shouldn't like over push ourselves. So therefore, I wouldn't want Palace players anyway because we don't score enough goals. But I'd be thinking, oh, you're just getting prepared more for next season. Versus teams, I think it's up to West Ham. They have to fight like dogs to make sure that they stay there. So they will need to push themselves a lot more. And I think the same's near the top. I'd imagine like Liverpool, Man City, and Leicester to a certain degree, that they may, once Liverpool got the title or whatever, start rotating in some of the younger players like Harvey. And is it Curtis Jones? And there's that Harvey kid, and then like Man City, you got Phil Foden. Yeah. So they may give them a few more minutes than normal because the next season is so much closer.
I agree.
Whereas teams like Man United, Wolves, Arsenal, Spurs, they are will be scrambling to try to get the Champions League spot. So those sorts of other considerations.
Yeah. How about you, Mo? Any more thoughts or expectations on what you think will happen?
I think you both really said it. I think Liverpool, as soon as they win the league, they may, bring in some of the youngsters, and basically, I think United will keep the same 11 most weeks, and I'm hoping. I'm still unsure with my pick of Brandon Williams whether his spot secure. He's probably gone now. I mean, so I'm hoping it is, but I'll probably see after the first game. And the Champions League will obviously matter as well. And primarily, I'm going to pick most of my players on the team still fighting for the fourth, who are really competitive. Fourth and fifth place, and bring it in from there. And it just happens to be that, like you said earlier, Wolves have got a lovely run in. Their fixtures are very good. So is United. So I think you see a lot of teams bringing in those players.
Yeah, I agree. So for those who are watching on YouTube, I've got the fixture ticker up from now until the rest of the season, and Man City's fixtures look really, really nice for the rest of the season. Arsenal's fixtures look okay in the short term. They then turn a bit rough in the middle, and then they finish off nicely. Man United, so they've got Spurs next, then Sheffield United. They've then got Norwich in the FA Cup. They've then got Brighton, Bournemouth, Aston Villa, Southampton, Crystal Palace, West Ham, and Leicester. They will probably likely have an FA Cup semi-final as well, and potentially even a final. So for me, looking at Man United, and they've just got like a spring in their step at the moment, right? So I haven't seen a player like change the impetus of a team so much as Bruno has for Man United before he came on the scene. And Mauro, you're a Man United fan, but they were woeful, weren't they? And they've just suddenly turned now, with...
And it's painful to watch, and and usually I'll spend every second watching every single pass made and done, and after about 20 minutes for the last few years, really you want to turn over, and it's painful to say that the teams like obviously like Liverpool and Man City that they play such attractive football, and we're way behind. But it's you're right with Bruno Fernandez. He's brought something in, and everyone seems to have their game slightly, and you can see on the pitch,
And with Pogba back and Rashford back, Martial, he's been playing well. Dan James has been doing okay as well. I really think that United are going to make a real push at the end of the season. I wouldn't be surprised if they finish it really well, and then start next season really well. And and Greenwood as well. So he'll be pushing for a start. And Igalo's just had his contract extended as well, haven't they? So they'll all be like scrapping for these places. But I'm quite excited to see Pogba and Fernandes in the same team, because they're both, as much as I probably dislike Pogba as a person, as a footballer, he is absolutely superb when he's on song. So they've got really good fixtures. Villa's are okay. Sheffield United's are really nice as well, and they're still in the FA Cup, and they've got the double game week. Watford's are actually nice. So they've got Leicester and Burnley, but then they've got Southampton, they've then got Chelsea, then they finish with Norwich, Newcastle, and West Ham as well before a difficult finish with Man City and Arsenal. But looking at Sarr, he finished off very, very well, and he's only 2.8 million and 0.7% owned as well. So he's one I got my arm for sure. And then Norwich, and then Wolves. So Wolves have got, I mean, their first three back Wolves are West Ham, Bournemouth, and Villa. So three of the weakest defenses of the lot. So they have got a really nice run of games. And just to kind of finish off on expectations for the rest of the season and what it means for TFF, I would say normally, we normally have a section on kind of eyeing up 2-for-1s and 3-for-1s and stuff. I don't think that is as important and prevalent as it has been now, because each team is going to be playing twice a week, and there's no way that all these players, especially the players who will be looking at for TFF, will be starting every single game. So I'm probably not as thing on that, and I think that's an advantage for managers like us who have less transfers, because I think there is that advantage there. But the disadvantage for us and for those who hold a lot of transfers is, these managers can just wait. They can see practically every team sheet and make a decision on the back of the team sheet. So I think that's really important. And also as well, and Carl, I know you're a big believer of this, that teams with lots of transfers left can also now properly load up for the FA Cup, especially the final. Hopefully it'll be something like Man City and Man United, both from a footballing view, what a final that would be. But those with lots of transfers left could probably get 11 out for that very, very easily. The 11 best players as well.
Yeah, so I think you're right. That is what I enjoy going for. More about the semi-final stage, because I don't want to wait until the end of the season and not take full advantage of the transfers. Can I just sort of mention back, just go back a little bit, because you sort of said about the 2-for-1 and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
And I 100% agree with what you say. But I just want to sort of add in one little caveat, because I've got 2 Liverpool players, and I think we sort of talked about on the last pod about I was going to get jumped ship on Liverpool players anyway, even before we was in this sort of circumstance. Man City, there is when I think Liverpool, after they play Crystal Palace, Man City have 2 games, the FA Cup and a fixture, and then they play Liverpool. So Liverpool are less likely to rotate in the short term, because they have quite big gaps between their matches.
Yeah.
And if you are going to jump from Liverpool to, say, Man City, after the Palace game may be quite good, because you will get that extra game, and you may get an extra 2 games. I just thought I'd point that out.
No, that's good. Look at the FA Cup fixtures now. So the FA Cup fixtures, for those who don't know, so they are planned in for Saturday the 27th of June and Sunday the 28th of June. So the fixture on the Saturday evening is Norwich versus Man United. So they play first out of those games. It'll be very interesting actually to see the lineup for that. Norwich, a cup game is different from a league game, but you can imagine if Man United are playing their very best and Norwich are, then United will win. In terms of planning as well, I think that fixture is probably the best time to look to bring in Man United players, because their first games back, they've got Tottenham and Sheffield United, so they're probably not the best fixtures to bring in the players against. If you're planning, if the players you're taking out are decent players, so we're talking about Liverpool players and things like that. There's no point in taking out Salah personally for someone like Fernandez earlier than that match, because Man United are going to come up against Spurs first off, and then Sheffield United, who are very, very tight defensively. But whoever starts for United in that Norwich game, that for me is the time to bring in United players. So, as I say, I'm personally eyeing up Maguire and Bruno. I think if they both start that game, that'll be the time I'll be bringing them in personally. Carl, you're looking very, your eyebrows are very raised. Is that you disagree with me, or have you got other thoughts?
Well, it's quite strange. I remember Luke was in the last pod. He thought there'd be 4 away wins as certainties, and I'm much more doubtful on that. I'd be at least one of them will lose, if not more. And I'm not as certain on Man United as yourself.
Okay.
Mainly because they've got 2 tough fixtures coming up.
Agree with that, yeah.
And then if so, they'll be. I think they should be focused on the league. They will still put out a strong team against Norwich, but I think if they win their first 2 matches, they will surely be pushing and save energy for the game the following midweek, and then the games after that. And if Norwich are relegated by that stage or very close to relegation, they may end up putting out a stronger team in the cup. I just don't know. It's like I in normal circumstances, I would sort of be much stronger at Man United. I'm still think they'd expect them to win, and therefore I still agree with you, but not to the same level of confidence.
So the only reason I say at that point to definitely jump on them is because after that game, whether they win that game or not, after that their run is Brighton, Bournemouth, Villa, Southampton, Palace. So this is the point, is that even if they lose that game against Norwich, their fixtures for the remainder of the season are the best out of everyone in the league. And I think they've got that bounce as well, that players like, Bruno, Rashford will do well at the end of the season. What do you think, Mau, as a United fan? Are you expecting United to do well?
Yeah, I think you're right with Rashford being fully fit back in, and Pogba, and I think the FA Cup may be tight, and Carl's got a point. If Norwich, are relegated by then, and they've won everything, and say, they're going to be very strong. It's going to be a tough game, but we all fancy Man United to win that, and even past that, like you said, it's all those last 3 or 4 games are so inviting. The strong attacking players, I think, especially if you're very short on transfers. I think it might be the way forward, because they should finish well, I think.
Yeah. Can I just sort of throw another reason of why I wouldn't bring in a Man United player for that match itself? And you're right. It depends on who you'd bring in, because is that just not the second match of that game week?
It's the first FA Cup match. I think it's the second match of the game week, but it's the first. It's the first FA Cup match, which is a good point. Yeah. Yeah.
So if you're going to transfer somebody in, then all you're doing is saying that they aren't going to play their match. You could actually transfer them in the midweek game when they play the Brighton, when everybody in that, if it is Brighton they play in the midweek, rather than bring them in and get knocked out the cup and then they miss that up next match. I'm not sort of saying there's pros and cons, and it depends on how the next few weeks going.
And I suppose, you're right as well. I suppose if they did lose in the cup, the morale might be a bit lower then. But so there's a point to maybe not bring him until after the FA Cup. I didn't realise it was the early kickoff, so it's slightly.
Well, it's because it's not the early kickoff; it's 5:30. But because they're having matches on all sorts of times, there's not. I don't think there's a 3 o'clock on that Saturday. It just means that to get an extra game, I presume we always go for an extra game if possible.
Yeah.
Then you'd either have to have a player from one of those 2 teams.
Yeah. I definitely wouldn't be looking to take out a player from a team that's playing the next day, for example.
Yeah, and especially if you're going to get an injury or whatever, and then you don't get a huge amount of benefit being an away match, and then somebody's going to be playing at home in the Brighton match. It is Brighton, isn't it? They're playing. I can't see.
They are next. Yeah, they are. Yeah.
So that's when you could bring them in once they played the Brighton game, and then you're making the decision with knowledge and no injuries and the lineup, because you'd be sick pick if Greenwood played in one of them and you brought him in or whatever.
In TFF, you get the lineup. So because there's more than a couple of hours between the games, you get to act on the lineup.
Yeah.
So we'll know who's playing that Norwich, and you can make a decision based on who is starting.
You know who's starting the Norwich game, but you really want the home match against Brighton.
Okay, I see. I take your point. Yeah,
that's the prize. Isn't the Norwich game, which I think is going to be a bit tougher. It's getting that nice juicy game against Brighton and making sure you don't have someone who's injured and they're going to be playing in that game.
Fair enough.
That's for me.
That's fair enough, mate. And this is what's good is there's different approaches and your own thoughts. I prefer to play it a little bit more aggressively, and I think that I will look to bring in the Man United player. So I'm not going to bring in a Man United player just to start in that game. I'm not going to bring like Igalo. I know who I want to bring in, so I want to bring in Maguire and Bruno potentially Rashford if I could afford him, probably not. So if Maguire and Bruno play in that Norwich game, either or, I'll be bringing them in that Norwich game. But I take your point. For those who maybe have got a few more transfers, or a bit more reserved, maybe hold on to the Brighton game. But yeah, it's great to have different approaches and mindsets in it as well. And then on the Sunday, so at 1:00, we've got Sheffield United Arsenal, which I think will be a really good game. I actually think Sheffield United will beat Arsenal, personally. We've then got Leicester and Chelsea at 4:00, which again I think will be a really good game. It's so hard to call. And then a later game then is at 6:30, which is Newcastle versus Manchester City, which you would imagine that Man City would probably win that. But yeah, so they're the FA Cup games. From those, I suppose you would probably so I would say Man United, Sheffield United. I'd probably say Leicester to beat Chelsea personally, and I would say Man City. Mauro, who are the 4 teams who you think are going to go through?
Yeah, I think you're right. I think Leicester and Man United. I'm hoping, and it's going to be Man City, but I'm hoping it's Newcastle, because that might be my risky move, but it's a long shot. If I want to, it's a hell of a shot, I suppose. But possibly Arsenal. I mean, they lost to Brentford yesterday or the day before, but I'd sway towards Arsenal. But I think it's just going to be Arsenal, Man City. I think Leicester and United, Man United. But it's a risky one. But I may put in the odd Newcastle player just as a differential. But we'll get to that, I suppose, in a bit.
Wow, I'm excited to hear this, Mal. And how about you, Carl? Who do you think are the 4? Who do you think are the 4 teams will make the semi-finals?
Okay, I do think Man United will win.
Yeah.
I think all the other 3 are near enough on the knife edge. It's so tough them coming back, but I would lean towards Sheffield United. I do think Arsenal have a bit of a soft underbelly.
Yeah.
Leicester, Chelsea, that is such a tough one. Could go either way. I would edge towards Chelsea. Okay. And I think Newcastle Man City is a tough one to call. I think it'll be only a goal or 2 in it. I don't think City will romp home like you may expect. They aren't going to score 4. I'm pretty sure Newcastle beat them last year at St James's. So it wouldn't surprise me if they sort of dug in deep and made it really, really difficult for Man City. And it'd be 1-0.
Okay. I'm surprised at that, I gotta be honest. I think that City will run riot. It's purely because City are going to rotate their team. Their team is going to be constantly fresh. They can make all their subs and basically stick on players that are as good as or better than the players they're replacing, whereas Newcastle just can't, can they? But yeah, it'll be interesting.
Well, Matt, I think Newcastle can do what they wish if I'm on the league table. They're pretty safe from relegation. I thought Steve Bruce was quite positive about the FA Cup early in the year. So I think he could rest players leading up to that match. He can try out full out because there's no consequence. Man City, they're playing Chelsea the week before, so they'll want to put up a show against them, and then they're playing Liverpool a few days after.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with Carl there. I'm looking. Obviously, we all know Newcastle is safe. I'm looking at the league now. They're 8 points clear Bournemouth, so they're going to stay up, obviously. And the only thing they're going for is the FA Cup. So I think, similar to Carl, I think with Man City's fixtures either side, I wouldn't be surprised if it's. I hope so. Yeah, it might be.
It's just not going to be straightforward as what we'd normally expect it to be. But then, it's like you say, it's slightly different viewpoints. And Man City could romp home 6-0, and I look very stupid. But
and I've got a bias because I've got 4 Man City attackers in my team. So maybe it's more of what I want to happen than what will happen. Okay, so that covers off the kind of fixtures and what we expect. So next, then we're going to move on to which teams and which players we're specifically targeting for the rest of the season. So we've got a graphic from from Carl. It's an expected goals per game graphic. Use it every month now. It's absolutely superb. So, Carl, are you able to talk us through your graphic and your thoughts?
Yeah, this is just the standard graph that I tried to pull out from the algorithm that I produced, and it sort of really just sort of gives what we think the expected goals would be for the various teams, and I've from over the whole season, and then over the next 4 matches, and then for the rest of the season. So Man City, I think, have got quite tough fixtures, especially in the short term. We've already mentioned about them playing Man City and Liverpool, and they've got Arsenal. So even though they're still expected to score well, I wouldn't expect them to be in such a driving position as what they normally are. The teams that would have easier sets of fixtures, I put to the left, and the two that sort of the one that jumps out at me the most is Man United, and we've mentioned them a few times that they're one of the big teams that still are within the FA Cup and have got good fixtures. There's no other teams that I'd really sort of jump on. Most of the other teams to the right are the big teams that I like players from, but they don't have the easiest of fixtures. So Man United, Wolves have got good fixtures, and I think we've already mentioned that, especially in the short term. But because transfers are limited, I wouldn't be hopping on and off like I may do earlier in the season.
Yeah.
So Wolves do look nice. If I had a Wolves player, I'd be happy, but I wouldn't be using a transfer to bring them in myself.
Okay, so looking at that then, Carl, which players from those teams you targeted? So you've mentioned Man United, you mentioned Wolves. Which actual players have you got your eye on for the run-in?
My eyes will be on one that I was going to mention this later as a differential, and that may be Paul Pogba. And that depends on how he gets on at Spurs, because I saw somewhere on Twitter, and I don't know. Obviously, whenever you see Twitter, you don't know what's true and what's false. But I'm pretty sure that I saw somewhere that he may be playing in the more forward role instead of Bruno, and Bruno being pushed further back.
Yeah, it was on the United. It's like an unofficial Man United account.
So if that's the case, it would take me. I've got Bruno, so it doesn't make any difference because I wouldn't be getting rid of him.
Yeah.
But if I didn't have Bruno, it would make me less wary of getting him in.
Yeah.
But I've got him, and Bruno is a good choice, and I think Pogba, Rashford as well. So I'll be looking for the big players to make sure that I've got the funds available. So Pogba, Rashford, and probably a defender, maybe someone like Luke Shaw.
Yeah.
It depends on how the first few games go, and does he look fit.
And I tell you what's brilliant now, and it's probably unprecedented in previous seasons, but because a lot of the key players now that you would normally have in your teams have all been injured long term, they're all barely owned. So Pogba, he's 5.5 million, but he's 1% owned, and Pogba on his day is absolutely superb. He's going to have some really good players around him, really good fixtures, as we've mentioned. Rashford, he's 6.4 million. He's more expensive, but I was surprised to see he's only 5% owned as well. And I think that is very low. It will increase, but even if it just increases to 10 or 15 or 20%, I think he's a great pick. And Shaw you mentioned as well. So Shaw scored the most points in the last 6 game weeks out of all defenders, and he's only 1% owned. So they're all very, very low owned players you mentioned there.
Yeah, and of course we always sort of come back to similar themes as what we go before. A lot of this would depend, to me, on how that match against Spurs go.
Yeah.
If Man United look like they were before we had this sort of forced break, then I may bring them in, some of those in for the Sheffield United game the following week. Otherwise, I'd wait until the Brighton match.
Cool, yeah.
For the same reasons as what we sort of mentioned before.
And we've all been talking and raving about Bruno Fernandez. So Bruno Fernandez, he's only 4.5 million. He's incredibly cheap. He's also only 9% owned, which I was very surprised at as well. So you can still jump on Bruno. He's very low owned. He looks like central to everything they do on set pieces. He may be on penalties still. And I was actually surprised, just talking about United, that Martial, so he's 4.8. He's classed as a midfielder as well. Obviously, he's in your team now. He's only 10% owned as well. So that whole United team is very low owned, and I believe that they will have a storming finish to the season. And I wouldn't be surprised if they won the FA Cup. I wouldn't be surprised if they had a really good surge to the top four as well. So
yeah, and basically that's been only having 5 chances left now. I was aiming down like a couple of Man United's assets. So
yeah.
I didn't realise Pogba was so little owned. So I looked at Luke Shaw. So especially again, I keep going back to Brandon Williams. He's not gonna play much. He's gonna come out and that'll be the straight swap. Obviously, I'll find some money from somewhere. But yeah, and I think United is the safe option with those players. They all want to, Pogba especially. He's going to want to show everyone what he can do.
Yeah.
He's been off so long, and the only other option, I know we all like going down the FA Cup route, but again, a couple of if I'm not going to, with the couple of chances I have left, I may pick Doherty. I know you said he might get rotated, but he's so on his day that up there with Alexander Arnold for attacking returns, and because they're not in the FA Cup, maybe he might play the last. He may play in every game, either Jimenez or Jota, but they're obviously a bit more over than the others. But yeah, so I think the Man United option is the way forward for a couple of the players.
So Doherty was 3.5 million, so he's the same choice as Pereira. So for me, he's probably the best. Kind of like swap. Maguire is 3.7 as well, but they're the two defenders I'm definitely eyeing at. Doherty is 13% owned, which again I think is quite low. There's a lot of really, the really highly owned players are are like Alexander Arnold, and then you've all the Man City and Liverpool attackers, right? But all these players we're talking about are quite low owned. Jimenez, he's 5.4 million, which I think is cheap for a good striker. He's 21% owned. I haven't got Jota stats in front of me, but from memory, I think he's something like, I want to say 3.9 million midfielder, and I think he's under 10% owned as well. And bear in mind, he basically plays as a striker, doesn't he? So I think he and Martial are both out of position, so they're classed as midfielders, but they play at front, which is why Jota's in my team. So yeah, I completely agree on Wolves as well, even though they're not in the FA Cup. But then as you say, that actually may have an added advantage if they play more league games than expected. What are your thoughts on Wolves, Carl? Have you got your eye on any Wolves players at all, or are you blinkered by the FA Cup?
I'm afraid I do get very blinkered. I get blinkered, and I sort of think of my team of it is very pleasurable having what I'd call top class players, and I know the players you mentioned from Wolves are quality players, but it's always nice having the top Man City and Man United players, and Liverpool, say, if they're still in the FA Cup. And I think we got a gem of a team this season in Sheffield United, who have got cheap, rock bottom price defenders. And I think I was listening to BBC Daily, Football Daily, or whatever it was today, and they had a quiz, and they was talking about the team that's conceded the second most number of goals, and it's Sheffield United. And it's like, what more do you want from somebody so cheap? And it just frees up the funds to have your Mahrez, your Rashford, your Pogba. You can put them all in. So Jota may be good value, but it's taking out one of those, gold players, gold star players. So that's where I just get blinded, I'm afraid.
Yeah, I think that's a fair point. And in terms of, just looking at teams and players as well, so the three things I kind of look for at this stage of the season when looking at transfers, I look for teams that have something to play for. I think that's really important. So, I won't be looking at teams that are kind of on the beach, I suppose. I do look for teams that are in the FA Cup, and I'm very much a fixtures man, right? So I love a sea of green. So I very much look at the fixtures as well. Man United tick for me all those boxes. Man City tick them in the main. I think Arsenal actually surprise. I don't really like Arsenal. I do think they've improved under Arteta, but I think next season we'll see a bit more of an improvement. I think Aubameyang's a funny one, because you see him playing at like left back and passing the ball around his own area, but then he'll get one shot on goal and score it, which he's just like that. I don't really fancy anyone else from Arsenal. Sheffield United, as you mentioned, Carl, fit into that group as well. And the last one, but it's mainly for fixtures, is Watford. They beat Liverpool just before the breakup. Their tails are up, and I do really like Sarr at 2.8 million. Reece James, right? So he's 2.3 million, and he's only 1% owned. So again, he's like, I think we mentioned him a few times, Carl, but looking at these ownerships, that is so cheap. He's such an exciting player. He's nailed down that spot, it seems. He's very attacking as well, and bid price is really good. When Ali is fit for Spurs, so he misses the first game back because he's been suspended due to a tweet he made. But after that, then he'll be back. When he's played for Spurs, Mourinho has been playing him more or less up front alongside Kane. He's been doing all right. So he's 4.8 million, and he's only 4% owned. Marcus Alonso. So if you're going really left field in terms of chasing points from left field, you want the opportunity, kind of in a Doherty-esque kind of mould. A defender who can get clean sheets, but potentially will get you a goal or two. Alonso is 4 million. He's quite expensive, but he's 2% owned. In terms of Man United, we've already mentioned Shaw and Maguire. Wan-Bissaka is 3.8 million. He's 10% owned, but apparently there's been reports in training that he's been working on, his attacking play. He's nailed at right back. He's a really good player. I expect United to keep some clean sheets as well. So I think that Wan-Bissaka could be a good option. If we believe the theory that teams with something to play for are the ones to look at, and Grealish is 3.5 million. He's 15% owned, which I was quite surprised at, actually. But if Villa are going to stay up, Jack Grealish will keep him up, right? And he has been on penalties, though I think that he's been on them because other players have been injured, so he may not be in them anymore. And lastly, then, so again with Spurs, if you think that Spurs with all their players back, so I think they've got a fully fit team. There were rumours that Lo Celso was injured, but I'm not sure if they're right or not. And obviously Ali misses the first game back, but Heung-min Son at 5.9 million is 2% owned as well. So there's a lot of very low owned players there, but with a lot of potential, I think. And so yeah, they're the kind of that's my short list of players that I would look at. But obviously, in terms of the people who are watching this and listening to this, look at your own team and potentially think how you could fit these in terms of the number of transfers you've got in left, what budget you've got, what formation you've got. I'd be interested in anyone else's views on those as well. So lastly then, Carl, if it's okay, we've got your optimum team slide, which I love your optimum team. Are you able to talk us through, firstly, what the optimum team is, and then talk us through the team?
Sure. The optimum team, there's two. There's the current team, where I put all the players' scores into a spreadsheet, and I sort of, given the constraints that we have within the Telegraph, just sort of say what's the best 11 you could pick out. And pick the 5-3-2 formation with Henderson in goal, TAA, Robertson, Pereira, Chilwell and Sancho as the back five, and then De Bruyne, Main and Mahrez in centre midfield with Vardy and Jimenez up front. So that would come in at 49.4 million and would have scored, with no transfers, 1,554 points, which is only 80 points behind the person who's actually leading who may or may not have used 40 transfers. That would be doing quite well. So that sort of gives you a good flavour of who've been the best scorers, how you could have various price points. So, yeah, that's what it is. And if you'd picked that, you'd be well happy. And you'd have plenty of transfers to go.
I love looking at the shape of this kind of team. I know they do this every month, but I get excited about it because whenever I think then about, a game week 1 team. So I don't know if, anyone listening or watching, listened to my first ever podcast, which I did is something like last October now or something. I was really big on 5 at the back. And at that time, it wasn't playing out because I don't know if you guys remember, but at the start of the season, there weren't many clean sheets at all. So I didn't have a good start. I'm a big believer of 5 at the back. But if you look at the actual dynamic of that 11 there, you've got a goalie in Henderson, who is a cheap keeper from a solid team. You've got Alexander-Arnold and Robertson, who are 2 of the most expensive defenders in the game, who I actually picked out right at the start. I said, you've got to have these guys, even though they didn't start off well, they've gone on and proven their worth. And then you've got Pereira, Chilwell, and Soyuncu as well, who are obviously really cheap. You could probably have changed them now with Sheffield United defenders, as we mentioned. But the dynamic of that back 5 are the 2 premiums and 3 cheap ones. The 3 midfielders then in De Bruyne, Mane, and Mahrez are all reasonably expensive attacking midfielders playing for the very best attacking teams, which is a dynamic of that midfield. And then the strikers, because we always think the best striker. What interests me here in terms of the value is you've got Vardy at 6 million, Jimenez at 5.4. You haven't got the 7 million strikers in there, or the 6.5 million. So the whole dynamic of that team really interests me, because when we start thinking of game week 1 next season, and when we do a podcast for game week 1 next season, I'm going to bring this up because this dynamic of this kind of team always ends up being like this, and I think it should be a template for how we look to approach the start of next season. That's my very long-winded point I was getting to, Carl.
Yeah, it's worth. Well, you sort of pointed out that you've got the fullbacks, 4 out of 5 are fullbacks who probably get quite a few second assists or whatever they're called.
Yeah.
But also, I think you're right in terms of Robinson and Tiguere. They were sort of like half obvious at the beginning of the season that they was going to do well. Whether there's value for money is slightly different. But Leicester noticed that they're all 3 from the same team, and therefore you happened. It's easy with hindsight. I think it's a good thing. It's just making sure you get a little bit lucky with picking the Leicester ones.
Yeah, it's really interesting. And I'm trying to think back now to my game week 1 team. And I'm pretty sure that I had 5-3-2. I know I had Alexander-Arnold and Robertson, and I know I had De Bruyne and Mane. So I was kind of on the right track in terms of the kind of team that we should be looking for. But obviously, as you say, the Leicester players, Mahrez, Jimenez, at the start of the season, we probably wouldn't have said that they'd be in it. But that's the trick, is finding those players, isn't it?
Yeah, and also having the discipline to sort of stick with it.
Yeah, you're right. You're right.
And because you look at the midfield, and De Bruyne, he's missed quite a lot of games. Mahrez has missed a lot. Yeah. Are you jumping on and off, or would you just stick with it? And that's the hard bit, holding your nerve.
Yeah, you're right.
I think it's confirmed as well that with that 5-3-2 that having the block defence, where as it happens, it was Leicester, and it paid off. And I'm a big believer that, and especially that, it always seems to work with the international, the World Cup and Euros. The block defence, it always pays off with them, and it just shows you this one that if you would have had those 3 Leicester, I mean, we all had, a majority of us had the Liverpool defence, but if you had those 3 Leicester defenders, you're laughing from the start. It's just knowing, like we said, Carl, if it wasn't Leicester, which team was it?
Yeah.
Well, last year it was Wolves, wasn't it? I do remember, but the defence for Wolves last year starts off like a train. If you had Doherty and Otto and Ollie, and all, and all these lot, you did really well. It'll be really interesting next year to see how much Sheffield United defenders are, because if they're still around the 3 million mark, I can see my back 5 being Alexander-Arnold, Robertson, Baldock, Stevens, and O'Connell or whatever, you know what I mean? And even Henderson in goals, just for the value, they just, if they keep a couple of clean sheets on the trot, you're absolutely laughing, but we shall see. Anyway, Carl, on to your updated algorithm team.
Well, the algorithm team, to be honest, I wouldn't take any notice of because I think it's pretty rubbish. And that's just because of the way the algorithm works. Because algorithm assumes that every player, if they've played at least once in the last 3 games, will play 90 minutes of every match going forward.
Yeah.
And therefore, because Man City are still in the FA, got an extra fixture.
Yeah.
It's sort of gone really heavily on the Man City players. So it's like up front, and I know you've got these 2 front players.
I was going to say, you just called that team rubbish. That's basically my team, Carl.
But the problem is, you aren't going to get the way Man City play. They don't have Jesus and Aguero playing at the same time, or very rarely.
Okay.
And actually, the forward line is quite nice because it's got Bruno and Mahrez, and it's got Sarr from Watford, who you mentioned earlier.
Yeah.
Sort of creep in, but when you start looking at the defence, Mendy, Zinchenko, Otamendi, Cancelo, I wouldn't trust any of them starting. I think Mendy's a good defender, but the others, I don't think will hold in a regular place.
Yeah.
So, yes, it's there, but it's just 5-3-2 again. But that defence, I wouldn't trust in, and therefore that's what you get from a computer rather than a human doing it.
Maybe next month, Carl, we can do, just a bit of manual tinkering around, Otamendi, Zinchenko, Cancelo, and come up with the next best ones, the kind of who we know are going to start. I think that'd be good.
Yeah, but then once you start going down that route, sometimes it picks out a player and you get your human intervention and you go, oh, I'll take that out, and somebody, then you start. Yeah. We can virtually do it ourselves, and that's the sort of issue. I may try to do that.
It'd be interesting again, though.
Yeah, I'll give all 3. I'd sort of say, here's the current, here's the computer, and here's me after I've given my thoughts on what the computer does.
But it's really interesting, I think, again, that the algorithm has picked out a 5-3-2, with a similar sort of dynamic. Again, it just proves that 5-3-2 is kind of the way to go with the way that the pricing is currently and the point scoring. I think 5-4-1 for me, if that was allowed, and I don't know if they'll do this next season, but that would be an even better one again, because that kind of opens it up again, then, don't it? Because the value is not in attack, and it's shown it on that, that kind of optimum team. Vardy and Jimenez, they're 2 cheapish strikers in this game, right? The value is not in the Agueros and in the Rashfords and Salah even. Salah's not even in that team. It's not where the value is in terms of getting a rounded team. It's in defence.
What sort of formation do you normally go for because we've sort of talked about 5-3-2, is it?
Yeah, I like Fergie. I started off with 5 in the back, I believe, and at the 5-3-2. The other option is a 4-5-1. I've heard a lot of the season, mainly because all the value is in with the midfield as well with returns for. I mean, my 5 in midfield now are De Bruyne, Mane, Salah, Martial, and even Mason Mount. They're so attacking.
Mount's been superb value all season, haven't he, Mount?
Yeah.
In fairness.
Okay, I got Aguero, but annoyingly I had Aubameyang, and I switch in that elite striker, I suppose, and that might be one of the reasons I use so many subs, because I was changing my one striker week in, week out, and it kind of backfired now. But yeah, I tend to either usually 5-3-2 or 4-5-1 I've had for most of the season. But like the template shows, I think having the defence is the way forward, maybe.
And maybe, again, just thinking more now into next year, a quarter of the season left, but maybe having this kind of formation and just spending our transfers, rotating strikers in and out for the fixture runs, if you know what I mean. If Vardy's got like a 4-for-1 over Aguero, for example, you just stick Vardy in for those 4, and then you move it on again and move it on again, but you keep the fulcrum of your team, that kind of 7, 8, or 9 players, reasonably stable all the way through, and just trust that the formula works, and it does. It works over and over again. Okay, so finally, gents, I'm going to ask you both for your top 3 players who you think are going to score the best now for the rest of the season. So if you had, any budget, ignore your teams, but for our listeners and watchers, who are the 3 players they should be looking to bring in their teams from now until the end of the season? Mauro, can I come to you first?
I'd go for, I think you got to go down the Man City line just for the fact they're in the FA Cup and they can score for fun. So I've gone for Sterling. I was going to pick Aguero as one of them, but again, I think he's more likely to be rotated with Jesus. So Sterling, it seems obvious as well, but even though they're not in the FA Cup, I think Salah, I think the fact that, again, he'd be on penalties and he'd be scoring. And I think the other one, I was undecided whether to go for Bruno Fernandez or Rashford, but I'm going to sway towards Rashford. I think he's going to get all the service. And again, if they're going to have a nice run in, I got no doubt they're going to win the FA Cup game, and their fixtures are pretty decent. So they're 3 very, very good players, and this argument maybe not pick Salah, but you can't. He's one of those players, even though he's not in the FA Cup, you can't write him off. He's, even without that extra game, he can still score 2 or 3 in a lot of games. So Sterling, Rashford, and Salah, I'm going to go for.
Thank you very much. And how about yourself, Carl? Who are your 3 that you won't be living without?
Or living without? Well, it's not so much living without. I agree. I would go for Sterling. I probably will go for Sterling. I think I've probably got Sterling. But I would recommend De Bruyne, because I think he's more likely to play more minutes, and he's going to be a good point scorer. I'll also go for Man United. I would suggest Bruno. However, if you're chasing and you want to take a punt, I've said it before, Pogba could be an outside dark horse because he's been injured. Nobody's got him, but we don't know. You don't know with him. And then to make it all affordable, I would be going to one of those Sheffield United defenders.
Yeah.
I think you've already mentioned, is it Bullock?
Bulldog is 2.4 million, yeah.
Yeah, so you could go for someone like him who's got really high points, or you could go a little bit lower if you want a differential, like 1% owned. Is it Egan of Sheffield United? He's like 2.5, and they've got those extra games. One of the things, not that I should have mentioned it earlier, but Sheffield United are playing Man United in a couple of weeks, and I've got Henderson, who will be missing that game because he's on loan, so don't book him in this week. There
is also a rumour as well that Man United are going to bring Henderson back to Man United when his loan expires on the 1st of July. I don't know if that's been confirmed or not, but if that is the case, then I've got Henderson in goals, so that is a bit of a killer for me. I would have to make a goalkeeper sub, which wouldn't be good. So I'm not sure if it's been confirmed or not, but be careful for Henderson, as Carl says. So my 3 players, I think if you haven't got De Bruyne already, I think you should have De Bruyne. I'm not going to say De Bruyne. For me, Alexander-Arnold and De Bruyne are the cornerstone of any team, right? In whatever format you want to play. But I think Bruno Fernandez is probably borderline essential for the run-in, just for his price as well. For 4.5 million. 9% owned. He's going to be at the centre of everything United do. I think he's a shoo-in. I think Maguire, please don't laugh, but I think Maguire, I think United will keep a lot of clean sheets. He gets involved in attacks as well. So I think Maguire, a 3.7, again, is a really good pick. And I think I've been to and fro in, but I tend to be, I don't know if you've noticed, but every podcast I jump on one team and I can't get off them. We've gone through Liverpool, we've gone through Man City. This one is Man United. So I'm also going to say that I think Rashford as well. And I was tempted to say Martial, but I do think Martial will see his time shared a bit more with players like Ighalo and Greenwood and things, whereas I think Rashford won't. I think he'll, I don't think he'll play every game, but I think he'll play more. So I'm going for a clean sweep for Man United. I think Man United are going to have a stormy end to the season, and I'm putting all my eggs in one basket with my transfers in terms of Man United, with a little bit of Wolves as well. But yeah. So in terms of low-owned players then, Mauro, have you had to think of any particular low-owned players who you can recommend?
So going back to the risky FA Cup draw with Newcastle.
Oh God, here we go.
If you really want to, and I'm looking at my position in a moment of 7,500. I was thinking, for me to really go up the ranks, I could end up finishing 20,000, but I may as well risk it. I think. And if Man City get knocked out, then happy days for all the other teams. So there's a couple. You've got Joe Linto, who's played almost every game, bar 2, I think, and he's only They don't score many Newcastle, but I'm thinking he's less than 1% owned. He's 0.9%. £4.9 million striker, and it's not just the FA Cup game, but towards the end of the season they got a couple of tough ones. But the opening few games they got more home games than away, which is always pretty on the eye. Sheffield United home, Villa home, then they got the Man City game, Bournemouth away, which is in the worst fixture, West Ham home. So the opening 5 games they got 4 at home, and if they win the FA Cup game, then happy days. But if not Joe Linto, maybe Almiron, who I hate to say, I had in my side early in the season, so maybe I don't know why I'm looking to go back to him, but he's only 1% owned, 1.3% owned, and he scored 106 points this season. Not bad. No, he started every game bar 1. He started 33 games, so he's gonna play a lot. So I'm not going to say I'm definitely going to pick a Newcastle player, but they're the 2 I was looking at. I didn't realise how low Pogba was owned. I should have looked at that, but that's a must. Do you say it's 1%?
1%, mate. Yeah.
Yeah. So he's a he's a must. And the other one, I'm not sure about the Villa. Obviously, are fighting for their lives. They got a couple of nice games, and I don't know what's happening with Wesley up front. Is he still injured for Villa?
Yeah, I think he's out for the season.
So I feel so. So maybe Samatta. I don't know. I know he's played the last 2 games for them, but he's only. I don't know. Who's the other striker? They've only got 3 strikers there.
I think they've got a youngster, Keenan Davis. I want to say is a youngster.
Okay, so I don't know if Samatta does play, and Villa need to obviously win and score.
Yeah, that's right.
He's only 0.2% owned, and he's 3.9 million. So for a striker, it'd be interesting to see. And the other one I did look out, which again only because of the fixtures, was Arsenal. I don't like any Arsenal players really. They got a good running, and after they lost to Brentford, and I'm not sure if it's hard looking to that game. I mean, they're not a bad Championship side, but you shouldn't be losing to them. It was Pepe, but again, he's going to be rotated. But when he's playing well, he's very good, it's whether he's going to be playing. Then he's about 5% owned, but I'd stay away from him. So if I were to put them in, I might go for a risk. I say a Newcastle player. I probably haven't got enough subs or enough transfers to make that change, but maybe one of them. I want to possibly go for Samatta and maybe it pays off.
Cool.
But, all right.
Yeah. Thank you, Mal. Some really, really left field picks in there, right? But I remember myself, Carl, and Luke last October laughing at Danny Ings, and we were saying, we mentioned Ings, and we were all like, Danny Ings, ha ha ha, no chance. And look what he's done ever since. So you never know, mate.
Yeah, I think the main reason I'm looking at these, I'd never usually even look twice at them, but I'm not having the greatest season. I've only got, and it's basically I either finished 20,000 or maybe 2,000. So
no, I think it's a good show. Okay, so Carl, who are your differentials? We've had 3 cracking differentials off Mauro there. Can you trump him?
Obviously, it depends on what we classify as a differential. In terms of Newcastle, if I was going to punt, and I don't know his, I haven't even looked at his points or his ownership. I quite like watching. Is it St. Maximum?
Yeah,
I do enjoy watching him. I don't know if he's any good at points, but
he's low. He's quite low as well. I think I did look at him, and it was again maybe 1 point something percent. It was about 2%. So he's the other shout. Yeah,
he's a very exciting player, isn't he?
Yeah.
But if I was all the others I've sort of like mentioned somewhere along the podcast, like Pogba, Ballack, who else was there? Egan. Two others Harvey Barnes that I think you've already mentioned elsewhere, and the only other person that was on I would consider would be someone like Cantwell. I think he's quite lowly owned and he's cheap, but these are all differentials that are decent. But I just prefer to pick what I think are the best, and I won't go for them myself.
That's fair enough. No, it's for other people as well. It's it's to give everyone ideas, isn't it? So,
sorry, saying that I won't pick them. Ballack or Egan. My eyes aren't young. I can't see the screen properly. Whatever it's called, I would have him or Egan because it frees up the cash for elsewhere. So I probably will be bringing in a Sheffield United defender.
Well, that Baldock, he's about 14% owned, which is rightfully so. He's scored so many points, and I'm really going against what I'm saying about the differential, but I think he's a must to bring in just to free up the money, isn't he? So I think he's going to be my straight swap for Pereira just to get rid of Brandon Williams then, because he's not going to play. So,
okay, and my differentials. So Ismail Assar at 2.8 million is 0.7% owned. He's in Carl's algorithm team, and I actually really like the look of him, and they have decent fixtures as well. So I may be bringing in Sarr actually. So I wrote in my Fantasy Football Hub article this afternoon, which got published this afternoon, that I'm looking at Sarr. So that is definitely one for me. And the other two load ones I would pick out. I probably won't go for them myself, but I think they are good options. Son at 2%, a 5.9. If Spurs can get back firing, I think Son could be a really good option at 2%. And the other one, I'm just going to say, just because his price and ownership, like Reece James at 2.3 million for Chelsea, 1% owned. He looks an absolute bargain. So, if Chelsea, again, they're playing in the FA Cup as well. They have got less. They've got a hard game. But I think he's, a superb price. Very attacking. I expect him to be a lot more expensive next season. Okay, so that's it, chaps. So thank you so much for your time and putting up with my hay fever-ridden appearance and sniffles and whatever else. Fantasy Football Hub have been nominated for a Football Content Award in the Best in Fantasy Football Editorial category. If you wish to support us and vote for YouTube viewers, the link is in the description below. And for podcast listeners, please go to footballcontentawards.com/2020-voting. It would be very much appreciated for all of us here at Fantasy Football Hub. Carl, where can anyone get hold of you if they wanted to?
Well, I'm on the Fantasy Football Hub, and you can also find me on Twitter and Darkest Jungle.
Thank you very much. And Mauro, where can people get hold of you if they wanted?
So on Twitter, it's Mauro Z147, and my name's quite unusual. So if you can't find me, then you're not looking hard enough. So yeah.
And my Twitter handle is @Bergie222. So this podcast and video will be on the new Fantasy Football Hub Sky and TFF YouTube channel, and also available in all major podcast libraries, including iTunes, SoundCloud, and Spotify. If you'd like what you watched, please like and remember to subscribe to the channel in the bottom right-hand corner of the screen. And if you enjoyed your listen, please rate the podcast and leave a comment. It helps us increase our rankings, increase our listens and watches, which in turn allows us to continue to improve the production of our work. It also makes sure you don't miss anything. It will also enter you into a random draw at the end of the season to win a free annual Hub membership, so it is well worth doing. Our handles on Twitter, Instagram and TikTok are @FFH_HQ. Please follow and feel free to ask any questions. Our website is fantasyfootballhub.co.uk, where you will find everything you need for fantasy football all under one roof, including player comparison tools, the fixture ticker, Opta stats, top player team reveals, and much, much more, which can be used for TFF, FPL, and Sky Fantasy. We also have you completely covered for everything here on the hub for Telegraph Fantasy Football. You don't need to go anywhere. We have the TFF Planner, which breaks down all the games by game day and match to maximise transfers. We have Carl's algorithm article every week, which shares in detail the best statistical team coming up for the next 6 weeks. You have my TFF article, where I discuss my plans and every move. You need to be a standard hub member to get that. Use code Andrew10, so that's Andrew10. If you fancy a 7-day hub membership trial, just go onto the website. You can sign up for free for 7 days. We also have TFF WhatsApp chat groups for premium membership. Use code Andrew10 to sign up for that. And finally, don't forget to catch the Hub's weekly FPL podcast and Sky podcast. All details for those are on the website. The Hub's FPL Saturday live stream will be back a week Wednesday on the 24th of June, where we talk you through the 4 6 p.m. Premier League matches live and as they happen from an FPL perspective. So come and join in with all the live action. Our FPL channel link is in the description below. If you have a passion for fantasy football and think you can put into writing, why not submit a sample piece to us at fantasyfootballhub.co.uk/submit a post and potentially join the growing Hub contributor team. Again, the link is in the description below. So we'll be back next month to go through the carnage and to try and help guide our listeners and watchers to a good finish. See you all soon, and good night, and thank you very much.